Yes, so there it is, after In Your Light, state of the art. Before we talk about the voice in that, there's a few cut-ups in that track as well. Do you keep a library of stuff that you hear, especially like from spoken word records, and I know you buy a lot of stuff through op shops. Do you kind of then file away little samples on your computer and keep a database like that?
I definitely do. On this album, I tried to be a bit more organised with it, partly because it makes it easier then to, for the sample clearance process when you're not going, what was that bit? Where did it come from?
So you catalogue, classify it all?
Yeah, in terms of, I used to do it more in terms of time, like in terms of just doing it by month when I'd sample things, but that sometimes is nice. Sometimes it's just nice to randomise your sample library because you'll forget you've grabbed little bits and pieces from all over the shop and they'll come back into your consciousness at just the right time. And it's those little fortuitous moments when I guess things meet just by you throwing files into a project that ideas come up, which is what I really like about sampling. But as a starting point, yeah, I was quite meticulous, sounding like some kind of boring data entry accountant here.
Well,
but yeah, very meticulous in naming and filing things so that I could make sure I knew where they came from.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to go to a certain sort of texture of guitar sound, I knew that I had a folder where I've filed those type of guitar sounds I've sampled. So.
Sure. Now, the voice. How did you come across that effect on your voice for that track?
It took a bit of work. There was quite a few different sort of passes to get that voice to end up the way it sounded. It was a bit of a direct response to loving the extreme vocal manipulation on a Godley and Cream track called I Pity Inanimate Objects. It's a song off their 83 album, I think, Freeze Frame. And I don't know, that's one of the most amazing vocal effects I've ever heard. And I still can't really work out how they did it. There's a fair bit about, Godley and Cream and 10cc earlier's amazing studio experiments and pushing the boundaries of what you can do with different pieces of technology. But this particular song, no one seems to talk about it online. And I was disappointed because I really wanted to know how they'd done it. So in a way, I kind of knew I wanted to have this really modulated voice for this track to go with the kind of peculiar range of sounds that the lyric and the song explores. And I thought, seeing as I don't really know how they did, Godley and Cream did that vocal effect, I'll just imagine how they might have done it, and I'll take that approach.
So you never found out?
I didn't find out, no. And I can only approximate what I think was the way they did it, which for me, as a process for the vocal in this song, involved singing all the lyrics on one note in a monotone, and then using various bits of technology to shift the note down to the melody point for the melody that I had in my head. So what it would mean is that I guess, if I sang na 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 na, when the melody would get down to its lowest point, it would be it'd have to be shifted further than if it was only, the melody point was just a tone down from where I'd sang the whole thing in monotone. So it meant the kind of level of warping and the amount of kind of tweakness to the voice, I guess, would vary note by note, which meant it was more fluid than, say, I don't know, just singing the whole melody at natural pitch and then shifting it all down an octave or something like that.
That's how I thought you did it.
Yeah, which is partly, it still has an element of that. But yeah, one of the main things that then at the end kind of brought the sound together and I think gave it this kind of weird human but inhuman quality is that me and Frank, who I mixed the record with, laboriously went through and chopped every one of the sibilant and plosive sounds in the song. So every S, every T, every P, every D, and kept them in the vocal take at regular pitch. So it kind of sounds like, anything that doesn't have tone to it, all those bits kind of feel like they're, the lips are near your ears, they feel real. But then anything that has tone to it would be, from another world.
Wow.
And together that seemed to give it its own kind of voice and also be quite, not obvious how the sound was created.
Yeah. Okay, that's extraordinary. I think we're finding out as well, Wally, as we speak to you, why it's been 5 years since the last album. The amount of work that's just gone into one single track off this record is extraordinary. Listen, we're going to get into the latter half of the record right now, in fact, the last quarter of the record, and it's a wonderful ending to this record. We're going to hear 3 tracks in a row. In your mind, how do you reckon this record ends? Because I've written down sort of adjectives like mellow, thoughtful, at times it's regretful. What sort of an ending to the record do you think you've created?
One that has some sense of resolution or redemption, I hope, because a lot of the songs I wrote sort of a few years ago that started the record off and that have ended up mostly at the top end of the album are all kind of variations on dissatisfaction and dejection and uncertainty and frustration. So with the song I Feel Better in the middle and then going through to, I guess, these songs that we're going to play next and leading to the last track, I think the record has a really nice turnaround where I think maybe a lot of records sometimes peter out and feel like they either, the off-cut tracks are at the end or, maybe the less interesting things are there. But I think this record maybe has most of its strongest stuff, or at least most of its hopeful stuff from track 6 and 7 onwards. So I'm really happy that, this is my favourite part of the record from State of the Art onwards.
Yeah, the record certainly doesn't drop off at this point, that's for sure. So hang with us, let's have a listen to it. This first one, Don't Worry, We'll Be Watching You. So there's not a little bit of paranoia in the lyric of this track?
Yeah, there definitely is. I suppose there's a few side steps. I'd like to say that it's as simple as, When I Feel Better comes in right in the middle of a track list, it's all kind of opens up and turns around from there and goes into sort of salvation and, and acceptance. But there are still little, some twists and turns, this being the obvious one, I guess.
Okay, let's hear it. From the Gotye album, Making Mirrors, this track is Don't Worry, We'll Be Watching You. Okay, 3 tracks in a row there from Gotye's album Making Mirrors. We are playing it in full tonight on Triple J. On 2011, you heard Don't Worry, We'll Be Watching You. In the middle, a track called Giving Me a Chance. And right there, that song Save Me. And once again, Wally, all the vocals on that track Save Me are totally yours?
They are.
Yeah.
Lots of people have suggested maybe it's like an African vocal sample. But that was all just actually me coming up with the part and singing it directly into my computer when it popped into my head. And somehow that ended up kind of sounding a bit not like me.
Yeah. Do you have the effect in your head, or do you basically come across this stuff by accident and by experimentation?
The kind of African sounding vocal chant that opens and goes throughout the song Save Me was the thing that started the tune, and I don't know, it popped into my head when I was gardening. Of all things, I think I was emptying the compost outside, and for whatever reason, that popped into my head. Maybe it's the snails and slugs talking to me or something. But yeah, I very much bounded inside and went, right, press record, sang it in a few different octaves and then with a harmony part in the middle. And perhaps because it was kind of fairly unthinking, it was so immediate, it feels like it doesn't sound too considered. It doesn't really sound maybe like me or like the backing vocals I'll often do. So they made it through to the final version of a track. It didn't make sense to re-record them properly, quote unquote.
Well, it's one of the highlights. As you said before, a lot of the strong stuff falling towards the end of the album for you, and I would agree. These are wonderful tracks right towards the end of this record. And that track as well, Save Me, I kind of jotted down when I was listening to it. It seemed to be about sort of staying in bed and not taking chances, but it kind of resolves itself, doesn't it? Someone gets you out of bed and gets you back into life.
Yeah, well, it's my girlfriend specifically. It's a love song really, wrapped up in some kind of intersection of African chant, stadium-size pop rock song.
We're going to end with Bronte, which is the final moment. Thanks so much for spending time with us and taking us through the making of Making Mirrors as well.
Thank you.
And Bronte is is it a song about death, the final song?
It is.
Yeah.
But in a hopeful way, I hope.
In what way?
Well, I guess it's about acceptance and lovingly approaching the inevitability of what we and any other carbon-based beings on the planet will go through at some stage.
Who's Bronte? Anyone directly?
Bronte was a dog that was a friend of mine's family dog for many years. I think over 20 years. Was very ill and old for a very long time, and I was just really struck by how beautiful I thought it was that when the time finally came for Bronte to be put down because she couldn't support herself to eat or live anymore, my friend Marty and his family, they got the kids home from school, and the 5 of them got the vet over to their house, and they put the dog down together in the backyard and buried it in their backyard. And it was a family experience, and it was sort of, it was something for the kids to experience as, not a shocking, not a kind of thing to be feared and avoided. And I mean, I guess I wasn't part of the family, but I felt very affected by knowing that was happening. Marty had just actually been around at my house having a coffee, and he sort of excused himself and said, I've got to go home and get the kids home, and we got to do this, let go of our family member. And I felt really affected by that. I had one of my favourite cats that also died a few weeks before, so I think it probably resonated with me there. But I had that little scrap of music. Pretty much once Marty left, I sat down and wrote the song, almost felt like I was writing it for them while they were putting Bronte down.
Mm-hmm. Did you play it to them?
I did, and it was tough, I think, at first. It brought some tears, but in a hopeful way, I think, because I admired them, I guess, for the way they approached, letting go of someone they loved so dearly.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, Wally DeBacker, Gotye, thank you so much for coming in tonight. Congratulations on this record. It's a remarkable piece of work, and we'll go out now with the final moment, which is Bronte, and all the best.
Thanks, Richard.